viewers, welcome to another game of Casual Pro Gamer. Today we're doing another push tournament. This is episode 3, I believe, and this is HydraLots, as you can see, against SiegeLings, which is on the other side. It is 6 Zerglings, 1 tank versus 2 Zealots, 1 Hydralisk. I have no clue how this is going to go. I did check out 2 other compositions before this, well, same units but different numbers. And both of them were kind of overpowered, one on the one side, one on the other side, so I kind of middled the both of them and came up with this. So hopefully this will be a good matchup, and as I said, this tournament, well, as I said in previous episodes, this tournament is all about you coming up with good combinations and, well, preferably with kind of a ratio between them. And yeah, this is just something I threw together, so if you have a better suggestion, please leave a comment and suggest whatever you want. So you can mix races, you can do any number of units. Well, don't do like 12 units each side, because that would be very tedious for me. But if you want to do like 3 or 4 units in your composition, that is fine. Because, well, basically it's just copy-paste work for me, selecting the units, and yeah, it shouldn't be too hard to do. Anyway, it seems that our HydraLots are pushing a little bit more than the SiegeLings, and that is of course because, well, the Zealots are a little bit tankier, so they can take a lot more shots. But, well, once you run out of the the Zealots here, the Hydralisks are going to go down pretty quickly. Siege tanks are a little beefier, but since they can't siege, well, that's one of the disadvantages of not knowing how to do that, because I don't know how to do that yet. Yeah, they are going to lack a lot of damage. Now, however, the siege tank did take over. The siege tank's now in a nice concave, in a big advantage here. They're going to move forward, and they're going to kind of surround what is left of this this army. And yeah, the army of Zealots is not big enough to do anything. They don't have charge yet. They're going to get charge at level 4. Currently, it is 0-0 on everyone. So the losing side will get upgrades, which means 1 attack, 1 armor for, well, anything but the Protoss. The Protoss also, on top of that, get shields. So yeah, it goes for vehicle plating as well as just infantry. So as you can see, 1-0 upgrades now, and, or, well, 1-1 upgrades versus 0-0 upgrades, that's what I mean. 0 kills on both sides, and yeah, in case you didn't notice yet, this is the building they have to destroy. There's one on the other side as well, of course. And once they destroy this 4 times, there is one over here which wins you the game. It is also on the other side, and we will see who gets to destroy that, because that is the end goal of today's game. So, anyhow, round number 2 then, the Zerglings once again just pushing back everything, or holding up the entire line. And of course, this is the time for the siege tank to just come in and set up a nice siege region. But yeah, without siege, there's not a lot of region to be taken. Of course, if they had siege, they would be way more powerful, especially against clumped up units like this. And yeah, it's very unfortunate that I can't do that yet. But I will be able to figure it out in time. Also, we'll be able to figure out how to do stim pack automatically and such. But yeah, they kind of hit that away pretty well, because you're not supposed to use it like that. But yeah, that's what we do, right? We hack into a game and make something new, and then hopefully get something good. It seems that the Hydralisks once again are better at pushing. But this is the time when the siege tanks took over last round. It doesn't seem to be the case this time. The Zealots are going to be held up behind the line of Hydralisks though. So without Zealots in the front line, it's going to be a lot harder to push in. But yeah, the Zealots do break through. Of course, if you break the line of Hydras by killing one, you kind of release all of the Zealots at the same time. So the little statue there goes down. We are going to get 1-1 upgrades. Statue will renew itself, and also this little ball that's under here, in case you're wondering, that is just an artifact from, well, from the program. I can't seem to remove it. There's one over here as well. yeah, it seems really hard to remove because they really don't want you to use it like that. But yeah, well, it's just a matter of time before I figure a workaround, and then yeah, it will work. I actually did remove it at some point, but then it didn't want to show the building anymore. So the building would still be there, it just didn't show up. And yeah, so you could destroy it, leaving the ball on the floor again. But yeah, that's not really what I wanted. I wanted the building to show, and this was the best solution for that for now. So everyone has 1-1 upgrades now, well, except for the Zealots. The Zealots have 1-1-1. And yeah, hopefully for them, they will actually be able to take an advantage here out of the fact that they have armor and shield upgrades. But for now, it seems pretty even. The line is pretty nice and straight. So not really an advantage for either one, because once someone makes a concave, it is kind of over, and that is starting to happen now. But yeah, the HydraLots on the edge here in the bottom are going to get picked off pretty easily, because without Zealots there, yeah, there's not a whole lot, well, to stop the siege tanks from just hammering away at the Hydras. So yeah, siege tanks getting a concave going now, and that means multiple tanks on one, well, can shoot on one target, or will shoot on one target rather. And that is kind of why that is so strong, because you get the concentrated fire in the middle, and yeah, you can see that it just instantly melts now. All of the siege tanks will shoot, well, at the same time. And this composition seems to be really just equal, which is kind of nice. As I said, I didn't see this yet, so yeah, pretty nice. Equal compositions, of course, is what this is all about. You can actually win prizes with this tournament. I'm not sure what the prizes will be yet, but whoever comes up with the best composition, the composition that kind of holds the longest, that gets maybe through all of the upgrades or just stalls out in the middle the longest, that's probably the best solution to that, or the best criterion. The units stalling out in the middle means that you made a really good composition on both sides that is really equal. Okay, I'm sorry about that. That was a little bit of a break because I got a phone call, and of course, since this is live, I can't really cut in the middle of that, but yeah, that was unfortunate. Anyway, after the Zealots just, or sorry, the Zerglings just push in a little bit and hold up the lines, the siege tank did make kind of a clump, and that is not very ideal. Of course, what you want to have is this little concave that the HydraLots are producing, and that means that the HydraLots might actually just be better at cleaning this up. Of course, with all the Zerglings running around, they do get distracted every now and then, which means that if the Zealots fail to break through the lines for a moment, the siege tanks might actually do some significant damage to the HydraLots and might actually clean them up before the Zealots are able to break through again. But it seems that the Zealots do find the little gaps in, well, in the lines, and that means that the HydraLots just stay alive for a lot longer than the siege tanks. And since, yeah, there's one HydraLots with each wave, or with each spawn, and one siege tank with each spawn, it's all about those ranged units. Because, well, the Zealots and the Zerglings can both tank quite a lot of attacks, and yeah, they don't really have any problem with that. So let's hope that this will not hold too long, because, well, clearly the HydraLots, Zergling, the Zealots come. The HydraLots, let's just call them that. The HydraLots do have the advantage here. There's no way they're going to be pushed back at any time, so all they need to do is just kill the little building, but I'm not actually sure if they are going to do that. Sometimes it takes a long time because, well, the AI doesn't seem to understand that buildings can be attacked by, like, the back line. If they can't get through, they might as well attack the building that's in range. But yeah, it seems that some of the Hydras at least were shooting at it, and there you go. So fortunately that didn't take too long. We have 2-2 upgrades now on everyone. So yeah, this should be around for this team. By the way, after the 3-3 upgrades, which is one of them is going to get that next, they all get a special ability. Well, not everyone has a special ability, but the ones that have a special ability will get it. And that means charge for the Zealots. It means adrenal glands and metabolic boost for the Zerglings. So the Zerglings will be super fast and will destroy this building probably before anyone reaches it. Which is kind of unfair, but yeah, I kept it in anyway. Because, well, the siege tanks don't have a special ability and neither do the HydraLots. So yeah, kind of unfortunate there, but that is the way it is sometimes. So yeah, so far it has been back and forth pretty nicely, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to the next rounds, because obviously we are going to see more rounds here, because, well, with 2-2 upgrades on everyone, this might actually just be a halfway point. So for now, it seems that the line is forming again, but there are more siege tanks than HydraLots, so I have to call this for the siege tanks once again. And that seems to have been the name of the game so far. So siege tanks take over the first round, then once they are up in upgrades, the HydraLots will take over, and that means that yeah, they kind of need to be one upgrade above the siege tanks. Well, siege tanks are a lot more expensive, so I guess that is fair. This is definitely not a fair composition when it comes to the cost. Normally I try to make them into fair compositions, but, well, they don't have to be. I mean, I kind of thought that siege tanks wouldn't be very useful when they're unsieged. Well, they do a lot more damage when they're sieged. And yeah, we now have 3-3 upgrades on the HydraLots. But yeah, normally they're not very useful. It seems, however, that, yeah, they're doing fine. So I kind of threw in 3 more Zerglings than I should have to balance it out, because it would have been balanced if I had only 3 of the Zerglings with each spawn. But yeah, they got completely massacred, and that was just no fun. So 6 seems to be the right number, and well, so far so good. Let's see if they can actually defeat the Zealots this time before they push in. But yeah, it seems that they are having some real trouble getting through that Zealot line. And of course the Zealot line is something really that Protoss use, because, well, they can take so many shots. And once the siege tanks get enough upgrades, it will become a little bit easier. But still, it takes a lot of shots to get through a bunch of Zealots, especially without splash, because obviously if you siege the siege tanks, they get splash. And here they are really just single target damage. Even though they seem to produce explosions, they're really not explosions. They're just, well, single target damage. And that is the big advantage of seizing your siege tanks, of course. It seems that we held it off here with the siege tanks, and the HydraLots are kind of melting away pretty quickly, actually. And, well, lack of Zealots, I guess. I don't know where they went. I guess they were battling the Zerglings in the back line, but so many siege tanks have built up by now that it might actually become another win for the siege tanks here. Which is surprising, because I really didn't expect that. But yeah, you can see here, by the way, the kills. So that is the total kills of this team, which means siege tanks plus Zerglings deaths are over here. And, well, on the other side, HydraLots and Zealots are over there. And you can see only the total. I might actually split that out in future costs, depending on whether or not I find that useful or someone else finds that useful. But yeah, especially with multi, well, this is just 2 units on each side, so it's not too hard to split it out. But if I have 3 or 4 units on each side, it becomes a lot bigger, the scoreboard, and that is kind of ugly to look at. So that's why I didn't do it. This one's not going to respawn anymore, because they do have 4 upgrades, so now all that is left is this tower. And if they lose 1 more round, that is going to be it. There's nothing you can do about it anymore. They do have charge, as you can see, and that should mean that they have a little bit better position on the field here. But yeah, that also means that the Zealots are just on top of the siege tanks a lot quicker. Or most of the time here, they're on the Zerglings a little bit quicker. But yeah, they can two-shot the Zerglings now, so that should be good. And, well, the Hydras should be able to just group up behind it and never get shot at. Because, well, that's what happens, right? If you have Zealots in the front, so with charge, then tanks should never find the HydraLots. That is the basic point of this composition. And up until this point it actually worked fine, and then the Zealots just couldn't get through, even with charge having trouble finding those gaps. But eventually they will get through, and they will find the gaps. And yeah, the HydraLots are kind of stalling out. They're not really building up a massive amount, although, well, there are more of them than there are of the siege tanks on the front line that are actually shooting. And that's of course what it's about with this little choke. The choke normally is used the other way around, of course. You try to defend the choke by making sure that your units are kind of outdoing. So you have more units shooting into that. Oh wow, the little ball over there, that was pretty nice. It's still getting knocked around. But yeah, you do want in a choke to get more units shooting at the enemy units than the enemy is shooting at you. But so far, the siege tanks held it off actually. They killed virtually every one of those Hydras. And that is surprising. Because the HydraLots could have killed that building like 16 times over already. Because they are still focus firing the units, they're really not getting anything done. Of course, well, we have to ask ourselves, are the siege tanks ever going to break out of this? And I don't really have an answer to that, to be honest. So another ball comes rolling into the field. I don't think that it will actually block anything. It's just, yeah, I really don't know why it's doing that. But at least you can knock it away, apparently. So maybe that's the thing I should do to clean up that ball underneath the little statue. But yeah, we are pushing back with so many siege tanks that are still alive. I really don't know. The ball is now out of the screen. I don't know. Never seen that. But yeah, now the siege tanks are actually taking over, and they might actually take this entire game now, because there are so many of them. And now the Zerglings are actually getting past, and I can't believe that the HydraLots didn't manage to break through there. There were a lot more of them shooting than there were of the siege tanks. Well, as I said, it was kind of a reverse choke, because the pushing team here got into the choke, and actually, well, the defending team should have had a problem there, but, well, they didn't. Well, the Zerglings just completely surrounding everything, and the siege tanks just shooting at everything they can find. But so many of them still left. There are no more Zerglings in the front line at this point, but I don't think it actually matters. Well, the Zerglings are all behind the tanks and between the tanks because they can't actually get through. But yeah, the Zealots can't actually reach the tanks anymore, so this is completely over. The HydraLots obviously are getting melted instantly because, well, siege tanks in these amounts, there's really no way. So yeah, over 500 kills now on the HydraLots, but yeah, they still can't make it work. Wow, so many of those balls just flying around. Okay, the building is getting attacked. It shouldn't take too long. It only has 500 hit points. So there you go. The SiegeLings seem to be super dominant in this strategy. It seemed to be very even in the beginning, but not so much in the end. So yeah, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. GG.